Hey guys, welcome to the Dr. G Show. We have great news today. The genetic report came in. So I did this, almost 2 months ago, maybe 7 weeks ago, and finally got the news that it's in. So tonight we're going to go over my genetics and kind of look at what's unique about it, go over 23andMe's kind of their website has all this wonderful information. So thank you guys for joining me tonight. This is episode 88, and it's going over my DNA and also why DNA is not your destiny. So one of the things that we'll cover in this is we'll actually look at the back end of the genetic report that I got, and we'll actually look at specific genes and then talk about why those are important or why they're not, and kind of explain those a little bit too. Hey Marcia, glad to see you. Thanks for joining us. Thanks Kel and everybody else. Please feel free to share this with your on your feed or with your friends and family. And maybe like it. Yeah. All right. So feel free to post your questions as we go through this. There's Brianna. Good to have you on here. And she did her genetics too, so we'll see. There's Kim. So we're going to do this a little different. I figured out how to switch this, position everything so we can look at the screen. I don't know how great it looks, but tell me what you guys think. Okay? I can't see your stuff from this when I flip it, but we'll see. No, actually, I think I can. Maybe I can. I think I can still see it. Hey, Sarah. All right. So I got a few questions for you guys. Before we start, one of the questions I kept asking, and there's some really interesting shockers on my DNA. So, what do you guys think my heritage is? Where do you think I originated in the world? So, where do you think my DNA originated from? It's going to be kind of interesting. And what's funny is, we'll go over we'll actually probably start with that. We'll go over the heritage part. So, with the Human Genome Project, hey Carolyn, they've been able to map out the DNA from all over the world to kind of figure out where people are from and where they originated, and then you can trace their travel genetically across the world, which is amazing. So Brianna says some Native American or Alaskan, right? What's funny is my mom. So I grew up. My mom told me that I was Irish and German and Swedish and English and Native American. So some of that's true. We're gonna see. All right. If you guys have questions, feel free to post. But let's take a look. All right. The camera's gonna jiggle a little bit because it's hanging here. But okay. So let's see. I'm gonna flip this one, and then we have our screen. So it looks like you guys can see this. So this is the 23andMe. This is the report that that I got. Yeah, so Brianna said that, but your grandma was adopted. So that's the funny thing, and we'll talk about this. This is kind of amazing because, hey Christine, I don't know any of my relatives past my grandparents at all. And I found out there's 1,063 people that have done this test that are genetically related to me past my grandparents. So that's amazing. I had this small little family, and now I have all these other relatives all around the world, and we'll take a look at that too. All right, so this is the website for them, and we got different tools here. So we'll go to DNA relatives. So we'll look at my health DNA, we'll look at the wellness report, we'll look at all those different parts to this too. And apparently, would it quit? Oh, there we go. All right. So here's my DNA. Oh, wait, here's my relatives. What are we missing here? Okay, well, let's go to this one. I went to the wrong one, went to the tools. So can you guys see this okay? So on this, we can look at my ancestry. So most of you guys would think, okay, well, I'm a white dude, right? So European. And what's funny is, if you look at this, I have a lot of European in me, right? A European? Alright, so it's a little distorted, a little blurry. Let me see if I can scoot this even closer here. That looks like it's a little bit better. Is that better? How's that, you guys? So you can see here, I'm very European. You got France in there, so I'm 27% British and Irish, which you probably could have guessed. There's French and German in me, right? Which is about 25%. So I'm about a quarter British and Irish, a quarter French and German, which I can, probably why I can talk with a fake German accent, like Ochschnatteldorf and Sprechenhausen, right? Because that's my genetics. Or je parle français toujours, oui. Les Mossiers pour Claude Joseph, Roger de Lille. So that's probably why I can speak French and make up German words. And I'm about 10% Scandinavian, which I believe I'm mostly Swedish, which some people thought I'd be a little bitter, but I'm mostly Swedish. Some people thought I'd be hungry, but I'm not. All right. Then I have about 10% Southern European, so a little Spanish flair, right? So that's kind of good. A little Italiano. Mono povero bambino malata. But what's interesting is I'm a little Balkan. Where's my Balkan here? 5% Balkan. Can you see that? Oh, there we go. And then the other thing I am is African. So this is the real shocker here. And what's very interesting is my heritage actually started in Africa. So there's a little genetic pathway thing it'll show here. We'll look at that. But although I'm only 0.2% now, what's interesting is I started out as African and then became European. So, as a black man, I have a whole different perspective on life now, right? So, and then I'm also a little bit Asian. So if you look there, there's the Yakut, and I'm part Asian apparently too, which is very interesting. So isn't that weird? That's pretty wild. That's really wild. So if we look through here, let's see. So here we can look at the age of my descendants. And so in the 1700s, 8 generations ago, there was Yakut and there was African. So Asian and African. Then we migrated and I guess bred with some Europeans, then some Balkans, then some of those scandalous Scandinavians, then some French and German, and then some Irish and the British. Ha! That's not the right accent. So, that's interesting. I started out as Blasian, and now I'm Euro-Blasian, or Blaser-Urin. That doesn't sound right. So, that's pretty wild. So Jasmine said, we're in Africa, West Africa. So they don't really have the actual place. It's probably Nigeria. I'm probably a crown prince. I'm going to be sending you guys some emails. And if you just give me your bank card number, I can transfer that $3.5 million before I die and my kingdom goes to shambles. Because you're my last heir. So, somewhere in West Africa. So, that's really, I never would have expected that. And so by the 1940s, that's when I became more European. And then if you look at this is quite interesting. So we can see kind of the genetics being bred out of me. So when I first started, you have Yakut, but there's nothing Yakut left really, but 0.1%. But if we look at the West African, there's only one little genetic marker still left in chromosome 6, which apparently is not height, skin color, ability to do much. I hope that's my rap in the car gene, probably, because that's what I'll be doing. So that's interesting. And then if you look at like European, or let's see here, my Balkan, those are the genes that are associated with my Balkan, which, I don't know, Balkan Islands, I guess. And then there's the Scandinavian. So that's my Swedish genes. Yeah, my name is Inga from Sweden. But you're wearing lederhosen. Who knows what movie that's from? And then if we look at my British genetics, so probably a lot of ability to drink a lot, alcoholic genes from my Irish background. There should probably be some fighting genes in there. Well, that's a bit stereotypical. There's my German and French genes. Interesting. So if you guys have questions about this, let me know. And then let's look at, so I started out as African, became European by the 1940s. Let's see here. Nothing crazy interesting on there. So then let's go to the reports for wellness. So this is kind of interesting too. So if you look at this, these are some general things. And so what we say all the time, have you set your profile for sharing? I don't know what that means. So Brianna, you'll have to tell me how to do that. So this is your general wellness report. And so this is where we talk about alcohol's not your destiny. Well, DNA is not your destiny. So we'll see some of these things, and are they true or are they not? So just because you have a genetic predisposition doesn't mean that's what's going to happen. So alcohol flush response, or flush reaction. Mine says I'm unlikely. Let me lower this. Okay. Mine says I'm unlikely to flush. And that's half true. A couple martinis and I'm blushing a little bit. So that's not really exactly true for me. Caffeine, less likely to consume, or likely to consume less caffeine. That's probably true. I'm not very caffeine dependent. Less likely to be a deep sleeper, and that is not true. Man, I sleep like a log, and apparently, according to some liars, I snore. Yeah. And then predisposed to way more than average. That's probably me. And you know what's interesting is we'll look at the back end genetics, and it actually says that I have to work harder to lose weight than the average person too, which is probably about true now, but was not when I was younger. I used to eat crap and was super fit. And then this one says lactose intolerant, likely tolerant, and that's probably true-ish, but I don't know. I don't think that's true for me. Sometimes like milk gives me diarrhea, but sometimes it doesn't. So I stay away from it because dairy's the devil. But I love this one. Muscle composition, common in elite power athletes, right? So I think that's pretty true, and that's probably why kind of fitness stuff, all the it just comes natural to me. Although I've gotten pretty weak these days, I gotta get stronger again. Likely similar weight, and sleep less or likely more than average movement when I sleep, and I have no earthly idea if that's true or not. Maybe we'll have to ask the ladies. So I don't know. So you can see that some of this stuff is true, but some of it's not true. So just because you have a predisposition for it doesn't mean that's what it's going to be. So let's look at our traits. This is kind of interesting because I can see some of these from the back end of the research too. But likely to smell asparagus odor like in your pee, right? So I can smell asparagus, and I can't. I've never even I didn't know that was a thing until they started making jokes about it. But I don't have that. Back hair, likely little upper back hair. Not true. There. So, you know, it took me until I was about 21 to even get any hair. That's why I thought I had Native American in me, right? My mom always told us, oh, you're a quarter Native American, just like everybody else. But the reality is I have no Native American in me. None. But I couldn't grow hair on my face till I was about 21. And so that's why I rock this beard these days, because it took me a long time to get some facial hair, let alone chest hair. But now I'm all furry burry, you know. If I go to XY bar, they think I'm a bear. And then bald spot, likely no bald spot. Hell yeah, because I have like a massive amount of hair. And then bitter taste, likely can taste bitter, which pretty sure I can. Likely no dimples. Oh, and sadly I don't. I always wanted dimples like that dude from Saved by the Bell, but nothing. No cleft chin, which I don't. Which is interesting because if you ever see someone with a cleft chin, their parents have to have a cleft chin. So if they don't have a cleft chin, or they have one, but their parents don't, somebody might check the mailman, because he probably has a cleft chin. Earlobes, likely detached, and of course mine are. So if we look, let's look and see if this is true. Detached. So I got that little thing here. So the ones that aren't detached are next to the skin like that. Okay. Then we have early hair loss. Not likely for me. Wet earwax. That's the best. So wet is always the most delicious earwax. And that's probably true for me. Likely blue or green eyes. They nailed that. But likely ring finger is longer. So, is my ring finger longer? No. So just because I have the genetic predisposition doesn't mean that one's longer. It's actually shorter. And we see the same thing when we look at the toes. So it says your big toe is likely longer than your other toes, but that's not true for me. In fact, all my toes are freakishly small. And Sonia makes fun of me, so that's right. Freckles, likely little freckling. I got little freckles. 3 of my girls are gingers and they have some freckles, and then my oldest one has dark hair like me and some olive skin. She still has freckles. But my cousin had massive amount of freckles. Likely straight or wavy hair. Oh, so my hair's not gay. It's straight. Well, that's interesting. Oh, I bet they mean, oh, I see what they're saying. Not curly. So my hair was curly and blonde when I was little, and then I think around 5 it turned brown, and then now I have really dark hair, and I still have a little wave to it. So this is pretty accurate. This is pretty funny. Light or dark hair, likely light, right? When I was a kid, light hair, not now. Likely little baby hair. Does that mean little baby hair or very little actual baby hair? So, I think that's probably accurate. I don't have that. I dated a girl that had that. Oh, and this is bullcrap here. Okay, photic sneeze reflex. So we talked about that a couple shows ago. So that's when people look at the sun and they have this reflex of sneezing. I can do that. So a sneeze is the same feeling apparently as an orgasm. Of course, that's what they say, right? So I love my photic sneeze reflex. Like I can literally just look away from the sun, look at the sun, look away, look at the sun, boom, I sneeze. And it feels so just energetic and good, right? I feel like I need to lay in bed and smoke a cigarette afterwards. Likely no red hair. Does the curtain match the drapes? No, curtain matches the carpets. So on my face, the curtain does not match the drapes. They do not match the rug. My goatee has red in it. So that's a little sketchy, isn't it? Skin pigment, likely lighter. Well, since I'm started out as a black man in Africa, it's pretty weird that I have light skin. But I was lighter when I was young. I'm lighter now, but not, probably more pinker, reddish, I don't know. But when I was young, I was dark. I was bronzed. So I don't think that's right. Likely prefers salty. Oh, I prefer salty conversations, that's for sure. But yeah, that's true. I'm not really a sweet person. I could give a crap about candy, but I like my chips. So that is true. Okay, here's my toe length. Likely big toes longer. Not so true. So that's not true. And wonderful, the unibrow. That's true. Likely no unibrow. So, but I did have, every now and then I get this really long, wild type hair in my eyebrows, and then I have to pull that out. So, I don't know what that's called. Rogue hair, that should be one of these. Rogue hair, eyebrow problem. That's probably that British. You see those old British guys with just massive, looks like a caterpillar on their head, right? And then widow's peak, no widow's peak, and I'm pretty sure I don't have a widow's peak. So, what did we learn by all this? Mostly true, but not always true. So, is DNA our destiny? No. It's likely, and that's because there's all these genetic things that have to come in play for things to actually become something. So let's look at my genetic risk. So they only have a few here, and they do a few here. Now there's about 25,000 genes on the back end of this that we'll look at, but on the front end they don't give you a whole lot because they don't want to scare the hell out of people. And this is where they got in trouble in the beginning, was they would give people these reports and then they'd be like, oh my God, I'm getting Parkinson's, and then they would kill themselves. Just because you have a genetic risk, what that means is I have to work harder not to have that disease. And so the nice thing about these reports, when we go over these with patients every now and then, and what that means is I really need to concentrate on these things so I don't end up with these conditions. That's really the answer to all this. So when we look at something like macular degeneration, which is just an oxidative damage problem. So genetically, if I have a mutation within the oxidation pathways, that would make it a little higher. But I have no variants detected. So I'm going to have great eyesight with my dashing blue eyes. And then alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency, nothing there. Celiac, nothing. I don't have any celiac. But you know what's funny is our IBS patient, in fact, most patients that come in here that do this genetic test, and they're like hoping it's genetic, it's rarely ever genetic. It's always lifestyle. So it all goes back to the same thing. And then hematochromatosis, which is kind of like an iron blood problem here. Variants detected, but not likely increased risk. So there are lots of genes, a lot of genes that can be turned on that do nothing for you, right? And then thrombocytopenia, thrombophilia, which is thrombo means platelet, and philia means the love of or increase. So it's basically a lot of platelets and slightly increased risk, but my blood work shows no problem with that. I am thrombo perfecto. Or I guess it'd be euthrombopenia, which means normal thrombocyte count. So, late onset Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's. So we'll look at that on the back end. That's kind of interesting. And then what do we have? What did we do? Did we do carrier status? We did that? Oh no, so here's some carrier status ones. So basically this is, do you carry one of these gene mutations that you can pass on? And you can see on here, these are pretty bad things, but I got a big fat nothing going on. So all here is no variance. So I'm a healthy perspective. Hey, this should be on like dating websites. Then you could be like, yeah, you have this, I'm not with it. You're out. We should have a dating website that does genetics, lifestyle, and they have to pass a mental health screening. So, and have at least 5 references from past relationships. That's what I'm talking about. That would be great. That would be really interesting. All right. So ancestry, we talked about that. Now, this is kind of interesting. This is what caused a lot of controversy in the beginning. So they said, we believe that there was just modern human DNA, and then the Neanderthals were cavemen who died off a long time ago, and then there's the other past humanoids that, they died off. And so we believe that all of us are human modern DNA. And then they did the Human Genome Project, and then we started finding out very quickly that most white people are Neanderthals or cavemen, and most black people are modern human DNA. So those white people got pretty offended because they were like these dumb Neanderthals. Wait, what? So then they just say, well, maybe the Neanderthals weren't so caveman after all. Maybe they were just not like we were dissing them now that we are them. So what happened was the modern DNA that we consider, modern human, that originated in Africa. So genetically we can trace it there, just like me. So I'm modern DNA. I'm modern human. I'm less of that, caveman Neanderthal, which is probably why I'm more of a reasonable person. Just don't check that out from other people. So, when the Neanderthals came across, all right, let's switch here. So, when the Neanderthals, they can trace it genetically, they came across the top, Scandinavia, Europe, and then they came down to the Middle East, and then the African, the modern DNA, they came up, and then they met, genetically we can trace that they met in the Middle East, right? So, what do they do? Like if we had aliens, eventually we'd be breeding with the aliens. So, what did the modern human and the cavemen do? They started breeding, right? And so all of a sudden you had these kind of mixed human Neanderthal DNAs. So just like my DNA, pure human, then it became European. Wait, who's peon? European, yeah. No, I'm a peon. Now. All right. So when they bred, that created brown, right? Black, white, brown. But it didn't explain Asians. It didn't explain Polynesians. It didn't explain some of these islanders. And so when they started looking at those DNAs, all of a sudden they found a different strain of human. So then there's 3 strains of human that came together and bred. So, isn't that crazy? That's really crazy. So, it's kind of interesting. There was also a whole genetic strain of humans that were pygmies, but they died off before. So, I don't think they're still alive. So, the 3 groups of different types of humans genetically are all still around today. So this is the cool part too, before we get to the genetics, is if we look, now this is kind of cool, you can look at the halotype here, and you can actually see, oh here we go, this is where it is. This is where I originated from. No, it's over here. This is where I originated from. So Western Africa. Then I came across, and they traced my genetics to here, 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 here. And so you can see where my ancestors went and made love. So that's kind of cool. No, Marty says we need to all stop breeding. No, let's just mix it all up until we're like one big gray mess. So you can see this traces all the way back. So let's look at A. No, that's today. Sorry. A is 275,000 years ago with my DNA. Then 76,000 years ago. Then 53,000. So you can actually trace that through, which is pretty interesting. So that's the migration pattern of my parental lines. That crazy? That's crazy to me. See, they need to have it localized. So like I could look at a city map of like Europe and figure out where everybody was breeding when they left or when they were living there. Okay, so then we look at the genetics. We don't care about all this, do we? Parental, yeah. So you can see like parental, my scientific. Okay, now let's go back to summary. Now let's look at this family part, which is kind of cool. If I can find it. ¿Dónde está? Oh, ancestry. So let's go back to ancestry. And this to me was the very exciting part, is here. There was 1,064 people that are all genetically related to me that I didn't even know. So this was one of the exciting parts to me. And look at that. So there are 3 people that are second cousins that are really close. Then there's 1061 that are third to fourth cousins. And then there's a whole bunch of fifth and distance. So if we look at that, oh, that's bad. Like, okay, so a lot of them are in the south. Yeehaw, right? Well, I'm from Kansas. Look at that. I have no family here at all. Nobody genetically related to me is up there. Now, the reality is nobody's up here anyways. So that doesn't make much difference. But I got to find some family members in places I want to visit, and then that would be awesome. But if we go to the world map, we can see, well, that's not helpful. Oh. Remember the, oh, well, that's weird. So most of my familia looks like Americans, but you can see my relatives. I even have some Jewish, I have some Native American, but that's not in me. Finnish. I haven't any Stardish, or is it all Finnish? So, let's see. There's Okay, let me see here. I got to figure out how we get to this part that I looked at before. Okay, here it is. So, all of these people are related to me. These are all those people, and it just goes on and on and on. So what is that, 43 pages of people, and I can go and say, okay, where do I want to go? I want to go to Sweden. So there's 3 people related to me from Sweden, and it's Rika Clayton and Patricia Chin. That's not Swedish. And then Ella Ward. So, now how many cousins is it before you can start dating? If I'm from the South, this might be a dating website for me. So you can click on this person, Rika Clayton from Sweden, and then you can look at this. So I know my parents, I know my grandparents, but I don't know my great-grandparents at all. I don't know anything past here. But, what's this dude's name? Rika Clayton. Rika Clayton from Sweden. He's my 4th cousin. Let's see. He says, you can also be different generations removed cousin. I don't know what any of that means, or half cousin. I don't know what that means. So, I think that's a Kentucky thing or something. I don't know. But this guy, his mom's from Sweden, his dad's from Sweden, and mom and dad are from U.S. That doesn't make any sense. Oh, look, and it shows what we have in common. So you can put your information in, and then those people can contact you, and you can contact them. So my goal is to find cool people that I'm related to when I go travel, and then I can kind of figure out, bigger, better family here, or more people with that. That'd be awesome. So that's really cool. So let's look at the back end of this research. You guys have any questions? Okay. Yeah, so that Sarah said, yeah, they actually give you names. And so Amy says those are people that have done the same. And those are people that I'm genetically related to. So there's a lot of genetic people that I don't know because they haven't done the test. But this is kind of cool because you can contact those people. So, what other questions do we have here? So Brianna says mother's family is from Sweden and dad is from the USA. Is that what they said? Oh, I see. I was reading that wrong. Okay, so mom's grandparents are from Sweden and dad's parents are from America. Okay, so yeah, good job, Brianna. I was reading that wrong or incorrectly. I'm trying to look through some of these questions. If I missed something. Darth Jr., that's about right. Maybe I can figure out who my daddy is. Oh yeah, you have to agree. So Brianna says you have to agree to share your name and all that. Marty says, yes, Kim has a very nice hairy chest, like a Neanderthal. If you might ask for some proof. I love my hairy Neanderthal. My knuckle dragger even has the hairy back. That's right. Maybe that's the Neanderthal part of me, I guess, is I have that hairy chest and all that. All right, so let's look at the back end of research. So that's all kind of cool, right? So these are interesting. We looked at the ancestry. We looked at the carrier status, which I'm solid. And then we looked at genetic risks. We looked at traits, wellness. So that's all good. So let's look at the back end and see what's up. So I use something called Prometheus. And Prometheus, basically for $10 you can put your stuff in here and then you can look at the back end of your genetics. Now, I would caveat you with this because this is sometimes a little bit scary if you look at it and think about this too much. But again, you just have to look at it as if these are things that we want to improve upon. So if you look over here, what I do on mine, when I do this reporting with patients, is I look at this thing over here. There's a category over here. And there's repute, so good, not set, and bad. And so what I do is I click off the non-set and the good, because I don't care about all the good stuff. I want to see what's up. What do I need to work on, right? So if you look at this down here, right here, I put in allow 500 and it says visible 329. So there is, does it say, it showed it earlier, but there's about almost 25,000 genes. So I told you guys I had the maximum amount of genes you can get. So usually it's between 20,000 to 25,000. I had almost 25,000, so I have like the best genome ever. So that's pretty dope. That's why I'm a breeder. I got 4 kids. Got to pass all that good genetics. But I have 329 mutations. So these are single nucleotide polymorphisms, what are called SNPs or SNPs. So does that mean I have a disease, or does it mean that I have to change stuff? So we're gonna look through a few of these. So I'm gonna be very transparent here, right? And we're gonna look at some of this. If we can move this over a little bit. Move this. All right. So like this one here, this says, now this gene mutation here, here's the gene. So there are S1s, or they'll actually name it. So like the AT2R1 gene, that's the other name for this. And what you want is C to G, or T to A. So in your genes, we talked about this in the very beginning, about a month ago, that T and A go together, which is easy to remember for me, and then C and G go together. So if it's a CC, it's a messed up. It's not supposed to be CC, it's supposed to be CG. So there's a mutation there, right? And this is actually a pretty big mutation, 7.3% increase of hypertension. And it goes on to kind of explain this. But, so that's a pretty risk. So what do I got to do, right? Do I just do whatever the hell I want? No. So I need to make sure that I have lots of fermented foods, beans and greens, things that have lots of B12, and then that B12 lowers homocysteine, so it lowers that. And then also, one of the biggest ways to lower blood pressure is to lower the things that cause it. So epinephrine, which is stress, so taking that pause, that deep breath, and just relaxing, things aren't all that big of a deal. I have to work harder than someone else does for that. It's more important for me, because I don't have hypertension. Same thing with making sure I drink enough water so the antidiuretic hormone doesn't increase my blood pressure. One of the strongest ones is endothelium, and endothelium is based off of nitrous oxide. So that means I have to eat food with arginine, which is pretty easy, but I have to get sunlight. So sunlight for me means I'm going to lower my blood pressure with that endothelium process, which then ensures that I'm less likely to have hypertension. So just because I have this trait doesn't mean that I'm going to end up with it. It means I have to work harder. So that's where it comes into practice comes into this of knowing, going to a doctor that knows what causes hypertension, right? So when they say, well, 95% of the time we just don't know, that's bullcrap. In cardiac physiology, we learn these things. So applying lifestyle to ensure hypertension or anti-hypertension. And then there's things like this. Now this is kind of messed up. A slow acetylator. Now acetylation is one of the processes for methylation. It's actually a very important pathway to be messed up. And it puts me at a higher risk of smoking-induced cancer. So guess what I should not be doing? I should probably be not smoking compared to someone else. So that acetylation pathway through the NAT2 gene, that is more likely to be a slow acetylator, which puts me at a higher risk for preventing a higher risk of cancer because I can't prevent it as well. Impaired NSAID drug metabolism. So this is one of those things where a lot of times people say, man, I can take drugs and they do nothing for me. I can take these medications and I get all the side effects. Well, they're based on these genes called CYP genes, which you can see here. These are the liver genes that detoxify or break down things. So like NSAIDs are ibuprofen, aspirin, those are broken down through very specific metabolic processes, and there's genes that are part of that, which are the CYP genes. I have a polymorphism within that gene, and it doesn't even show the polymorphism here. That's interesting. But that means I should probably do not ibuprofen or aspirin. I should probably do things like turmeric and ginger and non-toxic ones that don't affect my kidney, don't affect my liver in the process of getting rid of pain. And luckily there's lots of it. Ooh, Brianna says, I believe you can use the results in Ancestry to load the Prometheus as well. Oh, that's pretty awesome. Now look here, male pattern baldness, 7-time risk, which is interesting because if you looked at the wellness traits, I have no risk of that. And if you've ever seen the top of my head, that's a non-starter. So I might have this little snip in there, or that polymorphism, but I don't have it. And then this is, risk of obesity, so I have to make sure that I eat healthier and work a little bit harder. This is messed up, benzene toxicity. So this puts me at a greater risk of things like leukemia. So that's where all those things of like glues and nylon and sodium benzoate, benzoic acid, oxybenzone, and suntan lotion, I'm going to be at a higher risk for things like leukemia because I can't detoxify benzene out as fast as someone else. So that's a really bad thing. So luckily, artificial color, butyrhydrotoluene, I try to stay away from those things. And really, I tell patients to stay the hell away from it either. But that's a big reason why you see people with like leukemia, because we've known since the 30s that benzene causes that, but we put benzene in food. We put it in drinks, we put it in supplements, we put it in lotions, put it in sunscreen. Tiny little bit of risk of rheumatoid, so I better not eat a bunch of bread, and I better not suppress my T cells, so that way I don't end up with an autoimmune. I have a higher risk for cervical cancer. Well, that's kind of messed up. The male cervix is the prostate. Hematochromatosis, which we saw, 5% risk of type 1 diabetes, but that's not me. I have an A1C of 5.4, y'all. That's right. And then related to histamine intolerance, so this specific gene, you can see it's AA instead of TNA, like we said. So this is where the breakdown of DAO, or diamine oxidase, would then, like I would be more likely to have histamine overreactions. Well, the problem with this is I don't. So just because that's mutated at that specific point on that specific chromosome, I don't have that problem. Brianna says, my sis loves body and bath stuff and ended up with leukemia. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So this is antibiotic, childhood cancer. I'm past childhood, so I'm okay with that. This is one that's kind of through here too, the HLA-B27 allele. So that ends up being like ankylosing spondylitis, also I think rheumatoid, but that's where that molecular mimicry and T-cell dysregulation comes in, because that's where that specific one that I give with patients all the time, the example when we talk about autoimmune, is you start off with the Klebsiella pneumonia, which its antigen mimics gliadin, which mimics the tissue that ends up causing ankylosing spondylitis. So those people have to stay away from gliadin, which is processed meats and breads, of course. So those people have to have a higher propensity to stay the hell away from bread. So luckily, stay away from bread. So I'm okay with this. Amy says she started researching histamine intolerance, trying to figure out why so many seasonal allergies are so bad following IgG lists. Yeah, because IgG is going to produce a bunch of histamines, but those environmental or say like pollen antigens are being misidentified too, just like food. So you're breathing in food antigens instead of eating food antigens that then mimic tissue antigens, but they cause the same histamine reaction. So that's why, if that makes sense. High risk of breast cancer? Oh, well, that's not me, right? However, 1 out of every 1,000 breast cancers in the U.S. are now guys. So I need to stay away from artificial lotions, artificial dyes, styrofoam, artificial like clones, perfumes, that kind of stuff. What else? Oh, BPA plastics, very estrogenic. And I got to stay the hell away from dairy too, because of all that estradiol in there. Here's our HLA-B27 again. Here's our risk for obesity, type 2 diabetes. So my dad, he had type 2 diabetes. He was a really fit guy. He broke his knee attempting to jump a fence on a motorcycle at a party. My kind of guy, right? Sounds like something I would have tried. But that jacked up his knee, and then he turned to food, and then he ate his way to death, right? So he ended up getting type 2 diabetes, and the thing I loved about going to my dad's was we had just massive amounts of food and just cases of soda out in the garage. Like, it was just awesome visiting my dad. But as a point, I said, well, I don't want to die his same fate, so I really make sure my A1C is about 5.4, which I'm not bragging, but it's pretty damn good. Because I don't want to have the same fate as my dad. He ended up losing a toe, and then a foot, and then a below the knee amputation, then above the knee amputation, and then through a clot and died. So how do I not live out my dad's predisposition for type 2 diabetes that became my predisposition? Don't do what my dad did and I won't get what my dad got. So, again, DNA is not destiny. It is, you have to work harder to make sure that you don't end up with it. So otherwise, a lot of these are repeats. There wasn't anything really crazy or massive in here. There was a lot of stuff for basically weight. Oh, this was interesting. Higher risk for nicotine dependency, lower risk for cocaine. So basically, genetically, I should stay away from cigarettes, but I should do cocaine and I'll be fine. That's how I read it. So, you know, I both of these, I've never tried any drugs, even though I grew up around everybody and their mother that did drugs. I was always scared I'd get in trouble. I was getting out of the ghetto. I had worried all the time, like, this is my only way to get out is through education. So I didn't do any of that stuff. But nicotine, I could give a crap about nicotine. Like, I used to smoke when I would drink, and I could give it up like nothing. Like, I didn't care. My mom smoked like a chimney, but I didn't care. Let's see here. Slow metabolizer of DCA, so cancer drugs wouldn't work as well with me. I'm a carrier of red hair, which makes sense because my children, I have 4 daughters. 3 of them, well, all 4 of them have blue eyes, which is recessive trait. All 3 of the 4 are ginger, so they all have very fair skin, freckles, red hair. So I have to have that genetic trait too, or else that wouldn't work. And then lung stuff. So now this is pretty interesting here. So part of this 88% of the population that have this mutation claim not to be able to maintain weight loss without vigorous exercise. Now, like I said, when I was young, never a problem. But as I've gotten older, I have to work a little bit harder. This CYP gene, that's another one for metabolizing very specific medications. So I think I told you guys this in the beginning, like when they gave me shots to numb my hand after I almost chopped my 2 fingers off trying to press my girlfriend with a machete, I was flipping it, it's pretty badass until I almost cut my fingers completely off. She was not impressed, didn't even go to the ER with me, which was pretty weak, right? I mean, if your man shows off and almost chops his complete fingers completely off his body, they're hanging off, you should at least clap and be like, man, that's the sickest ever, you are so freaking cool, let's go to the hospital together, baby. But no, it was more of, I can't believe you did that, I'm out of here. So that's not nice. And that was my longest girlfriend. 3 years. But apparently you cut your fingers off and she dumps you. So this one here says it's common for Caucasians, that's you white people, and then rare for African populations, which is my heritage. So I'm a little bit of both of these actually. It's very interesting. High risk of a number of cancers, so I have to eat a lot healthier. Lots of fruits and vegetables, nuts, seeds, berries, legumes, and greens. Risk of type 2, so I gotta eat healthy. This is funny. So risk of like alcohol abuse. Psh, again, I don't know what it is. I haven't seen the genetics in here, but like I have no addictive personality when it comes to alcohol or caffeine or nicotine. Like that stuff doesn't matter to me. That's probably because I make a lot of dopamine and I'm happy anyways. So these are kind of interesting. Here's another one that's a CYP gene, so I'm a poor metabolizer of immunosuppressant drugs. So luckily I don't have to take those. So anyways, I hope you guys like that. I don't know who shows off their genetics, but I'm pretty proud of that. That's not too shabby. Got a few risks for a few things, but that means I really need to pay attention to my diet, stay away from bread, eat lots of fruits and vegetables, get exercise, get sunlight, have lots of positive time with friends, do a little yoga, run a little bit, you know, basically just have to do what I tell patients to do. And for me, again, just like most people, the genetics tells you, hey, it's worth it to do these changes because you're at a greater risk for these things. But in the reality, if you don't do the genetic test, guess what? You're at a risk for these things. You're in a country where every other person gets cancer, heart disease, diabetes, and 3 out of 4 people are chronically managing chronic disorders. Yeah, you're at risk, so stop doing it. And that's what my whole practice for all these years has been based on, and that's why we end up changing a lot of lives, because we just do the very basic things. We just get people a lifestyle that's consistent with life and longevity, so then all these really complicated things don't matter as much, because we just feel good. Well, thank you, Amy. She said, very interesting. Thanks for sharing. This is it was very interesting for me, and I'm glad we got to go through this. It'll be interesting. Yeah, Sadie's watching now. Sadie needs to get her genetics. She's my sister. So it'd be interesting to have I only got like 2 sisters, and so I got a very small family. But trying to get some of those other family members to do DNA tests too. So Christy says, did you know 23andMe has cut out several thousand SNPs? I didn't know that, but on mine, let me do mine. Oh, that's why. Okay, so if I put both those back on, let me see what I get. So there's 20 to 25,000 genes. Why is this not? There we go. So there's a maximum amount of 25,000 genes. On my 23andMe, they tested they found 24,193 genes. So I don't know. You have to, Christy, send me information on that. We're part of a research group up at the university, and we're studying some genetics, and we're using these test kits. So let me know if you send me, Facebook me that information if you can, so I can take a look at it for our research project. But at least for me, they tested 24,000, almost 24,000. So that should be about right. That should be about the limit. But I'd like to know more about that. All right, guys. So time's up. Another great show, I hope. Feel free to post more questions as they come up. Yeah, could it be that they cut... Now, okay, so that's a good point. So Brianna says, could it be that they cut it out of their website display? Now, that's probably true. They probably had a ton more things that they show at 23andMe that they stopped showing. But that's where Prometheus pulls the back-end data, and they looked at all 24,193 genes, and then they give me a whole different report. So there is a big difference between the report that 23andMe gives you and Prometheus gives you. And there's some other softwares like Prometheus, but it's $10. So that's probably what I think. Brianna's probably nailed that, because 23andMe got in a little bit of trouble for that, because the FDA didn't want people freaking the hell out. So that's why you have to read all these things like, I understand I'm not going to die just because I have these genetic reports. So Sadie, you got to get your 23andMe and tell Debbie to do the same thing, so we can figure out our genetics, figure out all these people we're related to, and we have a big old family. Yeah, in the South and Northwest and Europe and Africa. All right, you guys. Thanks for joining me. Next week, I think we're going to have this expose for a day. It's called Wise-Minded Women, and it's a VIP kind of event where we have I think we start off with yoga in the morning, then we have a little breakfast demo, we have a keynote speaker, and then we have 6 workshops, 6 breakout sessions that we can go to. I'll be teaching one of those, which is hopefully should be pretty good. And then we have a main keynote speaker at the end, or a post-note speaker. I don't know. Plenary, or our second plenary speaker. And then we have meditation. So that's at Wise-Minded Women. Who was it? Stronger, Healthier, Happier. So that's going to be a really great day for us. And I'll give you guys more information. We'll try to maybe have some of the speakers come on and talk about some really interesting topics. But it'll be a great day for women. Maybe drag their husbands too. Maybe. Otherwise, we're going to have a lot of empowering women speaking. And then we'll have, I know Scott's going to be speaking. I'm going to be speaking. And then, so maybe we're both very kind of like regular guys. Yeah, plenary. So we'll put our feminine touch. We'll be very gentle and kind like we are. So we should fit in pretty well. Strong men advocating strong women. All right. So I'll keep you up, but that'll probably be our next set of seminars or next set of live shows, starting with show 89 next week. That's a lot of shows. And so Wise-Minded Women, and so we'll talk about healthy, happy, and strong. So strong's the new beautiful. So that's what for guys, you gotta be healthy, or no, handsome or handy. So I learned to be very handy, so if they don't find me handsome, I can be handy. So I built a house. I built a 2-story clubhouse with air conditioning and all that. So at least, if my looks go, I can be handy. All right, guys. Thank you for attending. Thank you for being part of this. Please share this with your friends and family. Get excited about the Wise-Minded Women thing. And talk to you guys next week. Bye, you guys. DNA is not your destiny. Bye. Maybe. I remember I used to tell Holly, don't touch that button.